Hello everyone, this is Trackpad Artist, and welcome back to our continued exploration of Ryng. Last week, we dove into the shape of Ryng's world and cosmology, learning how the world itself functions as a part of the space around it. If you happen to miss that video, feel free to check it out to learn more about the world of Ryng itself, as well as its unique calendar and ecosystems. This week, however, we'll be looking into something mentioned quite a while ago, but thus far is something we haven't quite expanded on. Today we'll be discussing the Fell Dicatates, Ryng's gods of corrupt law. The Fell Dicatates, first manifested from the twisted desires of Father's first peoples, are seen as a skewed perspective of Kyle's divine law. Because of this, most orthodox faiths view them as inherently evil, changing the ways of Father's will in order to better suit their own whims and desires. Still, each of the Fell Dicatates originates from a human desire, one that in life's long past came to supersede their desire to follow their creator's law. As such, a great many people still come to worship the Fell Dicatates, rejecting the orthodox in favor of the many perceived blessings that come from following a god forged from human desire. This dichotomy between perspectives has left the Fell Dicatates to be creatures of great controversy, as they are wholly separate from Father and his heirs, devoid of the divine light present within all of Father's perfect creations. This severance of light, as well as their banishment from the stars, is what causes these fell gods to manifest themselves on Ryng, bound to the chains of Ryng's world no longer as gods, but as beasts. Even so, the Fell Dicatates are beings of incredible power and legend, holding a great deal of influence over the peoples of Ryng, even if such peoples are ignorant of their presence. It is in this manner that most of Ryng's Fell Dicatates exercise their power, as although their nature grants them immortal life, their celestial severance means they can still be killed. This fact is what comes to motivate much of the Fell Dictates' schemes and plots. As being gods forged of desire, they are naturally incredibly selfish, a trait that manifests itself uniquely to each fell god. Kahn, the Wrathful Spear, is the only of his brothers whose existence is all but confirmed within the historical and academic world, as he is incredibly public with his position and influence over his people. Kahn is the god of wealth, strength, and war, manifested from the angels' first desires for a physical power over each other. Kahn is a creature of molten rock and scale, razor-sharp claw and fang, terrible horn and wing, laden in the scars of centuries of battle. His bright orange eyes glow with the heat of the stars, as gold-plated teeth jut out from his snarled maw. His bosom bursts with the glow of the heat within it, shining a brilliant orange over his ever-beating heart. A being forged in the fires of battle and driven by an insatiable thirst for conquest and dominion, Kahn has long been feared and revered by both mortals and gods alike. He represents the brutal aspect of war, the destructive drive for wealth, and the unmatched power that warriors and kings strive to wield. His essence is the force that drives empires to rise and fall, a ruthless pursuit of dominance through might, material wealth, and strategic warfare. In the wars between gods, his voice is the clarion call for bloodshed and victory. As is his nature, Kahn has an unquenchable thirst for conquest and domination, ruling over a great empire that stretches the expanses of Yetri's red and black deserts. Known by his followers as the Scarlet King, Kahn's empire is one of constant war and bloodshed, ever expanding its reach through an unending campaign of conquest. Even so, it is this very thirst for conquest that serves to undermine Kahn's plans of total domination, as his armies will often clash with one another, desperate to prove themselves superior to their allies through their demonstrations of strength. Kahn's armies, however, are much more than simple man and muscle, as although a great deal of his forces come from the people under his empire's heel, conscripted to blade against their will, there are some amongst them whose lust for blood rises to challenge even Kahn's. These warriors, set apart as Crimson Knights, come to receive gifts of incredible power from their bestial king, boons of strength and dread, mounts of scale and steel. These creatures, known as Kahn spawn, are large winged lizards with gaping maws and crooked teeth. Bestial and animalistic in nature and behavior, these creatures are born of shed blood, birthed from its mixing with Kahn's godly fire. With these beasts as ferocious mounts, Kahn's armies lay waste to any lands that they come across, elevating them into an omen of death to all they encounter. Senthus, the Eternal Winter, the youngest of the Dictates, is the god of winter, decay, and prophecy, what he claims to be the future of all things. He manifested from the angels' first desires to see beyond the fabric of time, that they may learn to master their own fates. A creature frozen in time, Senthus is a beast of scale and feather. Blind to the world around him, he sees only through prophecy. He prowls through the caverns of his lair on 3 pairs of great clawed limbs, which carve through ice and stone. His teeth, jagged as shards of broken glass, glimmer with the scattering light of his bioluminescent blood, a frigid neon blue whose light pierces the canopy of his patchy, snow-white feathers. These feathers fade from gray to black as they move towards the end of his great beating wings. Torn and broken from millennia without use, Senthus uses them only as an insulator to protect him in his slumber. He is the embodiment of finality, the freezing and decaying forces that signal the end of life and the passage of time. While other gods represent growth, vitality, and creation, Senthus stands as the inevitable conclusion to all things: death, decay, and winter's embrace. He seeks to slow the world to a standstill, covering all in an unending cold, and bringing about a final reckoning where nothing is left to grow and flourish. Senthus's ultimate goal is the end of time itself, where prophecy and fate converge into a frozen, unmovable state, where no life or motion can continue. Senthus is the most isolated of his brothers, wanting nothing more than to realize the peaceful future he sees for Ryng, one devoid of the complexities of sentient life. Because of this, Senthus is incredibly slothful, being fully aware of Ryng's current trajectory. He has no intention to bring the future to pass, because he is already assured of it. As such, Senthus only ever influences the greater world when presented no other choice, forced to act in order to preserve a future of what he considers peace. Kahnaine, the great Serpent, is the god of secrets, conspiracy, and lies. Manifested from the angel's desires for authority and control, Kahnaine too shares these tendencies, obsessed with maintaining a level of control over all those he interacts with. As such, Kahnaine is a god of contracts, only manifesting himself within the dreams of those desperate enough to make a binding deal with the god of lies. Kahnaine's deceit, however, doesn't come from blatant falsehoods, as no lie can exist apart from truth. Kahnaine's deceit is much more nefarious, using subtext and loopholes within the contracts he forms in order to ensure that no matter what deal he is making, that he holds control over those who sign it. In his obsession for control, Kahnaine has since shed his original body, the secrets of its shape long since lost to time. Since then, Kahnaine has become one with his lair, the wooded sea. An ever-growing forest of tangled tree and vine, Kahnaine's body is now one with his domain. Now, an ever-shifting form of moss and wood, he masks his face with the skull of an ancient elk, its rotten antlers adorned in chains of gold and silver. Such a transformation isn't something easily wrought, however, and was only possible through Kahnaine's plot against Fafner, where he came to steal the secret to such a transformation from his brother's possession. Still, such a secret of immortality came at a price, twisting his mind to madness. Now consumed by paranoia, schemes, and an obsession with holding power over others, Kahnaine spreads lies and sows doubt in whoever he encounters, delighting in manipulating those around him. Fafner, the Mad Star, the first of the Fell Dicatates, is the god of knowledge, madness, and the stars. Forged by the ancient angel's unhealthy desire for forbidden knowledge, Fafner is a great serpent of scale and muscle, driven mad from the forbidden knowledge he has accumulated through an unfathomable years of study. This madness manifests itself through the 3 seams that run down his head and neck, splitting his head into 3 teeth-laden jaws, which bloom like flowers within flowers. His form is eldritch and foreign, driving those who witness it to either madness or enlightenment. Fafner, however, wasn't always known as the god of madness, as although considered gods, the idea of death led Fafner to explore the secrets of Ryng's greatest taboo, immortality. In discovering such a secret, however, Fafner was doomed to an endless life of unrest and obsession, a life only fulfilled with the accumulation of further knowledge, a fixation that would lead to the formation of the Brass Lotus. In forming the Brass Lotus, Ryng's most influential guild of mages, Fafner now serves as its secret head, disguised under the mask of his persona as Archmaster Phaelon. This persona grants Fafner a near unparalleled influence over Ryng's peoples, all the while living under a veil of complete secrecy, with near limitless resources at his disposal in order to assure the continued secrecy of his true identity. The only of the dictates that can challenge Fafner's societal influence is Zaenth, the god of prosperity, excess, and pleasure, forged by the ancient angel's first carnal desires. Zaenth, the everlasting hunger, is a beast of deep charcoal skin and scale, glimmering a faint lavender when reflected against the light. His many heads each battle for control, their snapping jaws fighting for dominance amidst the tangle of their serpentine necks. These many heads embody the many desires of man, each ever thirsting for that which they cannot have. Still, Zaenth is seen as the most reasonable of his kin, wishing such expressions of excess not only for himself, but those around him. As such, Zaenth dons a much more attractive guise amongst the depraved nobility he surrounds himself with, following Fafner's grasp for influence with his control of another of Ryng's greatest guilds, the United Market. A Ryng-wide guild of trade regulation, the United Market is the only organization with the capabilities and technology to manufacture airships, a necessity for long-distance trading on Ryng. The market spares no expense on ensuring the technology remains only within their own influence, allowing them to hold an exclusive monopoly on all of Ryng's long-distance trade routes. It is under the guise of Aranor Slaith, the head of the United Market's council of 5 noble families, that Zaenth hides his true identity, masking as nothing more than an incredibly successful entrepreneur turned politician. It is within such a position that Zaenth gains both an incredible influence as well as the wealth necessary to host a constant stream of elaborate parties and festivals, thriving on the depravity of his illustrious guests. In having Ryng's greatest empires at his mercy, Zaenth exerts his influence incredibly liberally, finding his greatest economic success when the guild remains neutral to the squabbles of lesser politics, only ever exercising his political power when his well-being is threatened. With the Fell Dicatates hidden amidst every corner of Ryng and its societies, humanity has long since forgotten of their truth, reducing the majority of the Fell Dicatates into a state of myth. Although society as a whole believes them to be nothing more than cautionary tales of corrupt dealings, there are still those who see them as more than simple folklore. Many cults and religious communities dedicate themselves to the worship of these gods, craving the gifts of their divine law. Whether it be gifts of prophecy, fortune, or knowledge, the Fell Dicatates give freely, sustained by nothing but control and the corruption of Kael's divine law. Such cults, however, are the topic of another discussion, as it appears as though we have run out of time for this week's exploration. Here's a thank you to each of you lovely viewers for your continued support and interest in the world of Ryng. If you liked what you saw, feel free to leave a like on the video and subscribe for weekly dives into Ryng's world and lore. If you'd like to go a step further in your support of me and my work, please consider becoming a member of this channel either here or on Patreon for access to additional benefits. Such benefits include early releases of ad-free videos, access to exclusive supporter chats within our Discord, live Q&A sessions, and much more. The link to my Patreon, as well as our Discord server, will be in the description. Until next time, this has been Trackpad Artist. Thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you all again soon for our next discussion.